Welcome to episode 54 of the MMG podcast. I am Chris, and I'm joined once again by my good friend, Go Cubs 711.
Don't worry, corn farmers. This is the first podcast made entirely of corn syrup.
Oh, hell yeah. Deject me with that corn syrup.
To be clear,
we'll be the Trojan horse of corn syrups.
What?
We'll invade your beer town that is not filled with corn syrup, and we'll come in as a Trojan horse thinking, yeah, there's no corn syrup, and there's gonna be corn syrup all over the fucking place before you know it.
Fuck your ingredients labels.
Yeah, they're right. Which is, I'm surprised at everything that that happened on Sunday. That was the reference. I appreciate that. It's a very obscure reference. I feel like that would have been lost.
Yeah, I had like 30 different ones, and I just decided to do that one because the idea of a podcast being made with corn syrup was just
too tempting. Too tempting at that point.
Yeah.
Well, guys, welcome to the final podcast of the 2018 season. It has been one hell of a ride yet again. It's been fun doing this for the second year in a row with you. Go Cubs with me the entire way.
Oh, of course.
And we have arrived, and it's a familiar ending, of course, as we had the Patriots once again left the Lombardi, and they have now won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls, participated in 4 of the last 5, and they just continue to be a big part of our football lives. Whether people like it or don't, they're there and they exist.
Yep.
Go Cubs. Before we get into the specifics of it, overall feelings about the game.
Fucking sucked. Look. I like a good defense. Defense is fun, but but when nothing happens like that, it doesn't feel like that the defense has played well. It just feels like the offense has sucked. But
I think that it was. I agree for the most part. I think though that while it would have been better if it seemed like the offenses were competent. Specifically on the Rams side, I think that I still think the defenses overall were fun to watch at the very least.
See, what makes defenses fun, and why the Bears have the best defense, is because of the interceptions.
Well, I mean, we had 2 of them in this game.
You're right.
Yeah,
but they were at the very start and the very end of the game.
Yes. Yes, and then, but I think that there is I think there was a level of charm to this game. I'll admit it. I think that there was a level of, like, everyone expected a absolute juggernaut offensive shootout for the ages, and we got what we got on Sunday. And that, to me,
that would have been Saints Chiefs.
Yes. But I also am like, you know what? After 2 weeks, everything that we went through in the last 2 weeks and how shitty everything was, how it just, nothing was exciting about the Super Bowl leading into it. Everyone was trying to hype it up because it was going to be a great battle between minds and and I include myself in that, really hyping it up. It's going to be a really great battle, really close game. To have it be that, I'm like, you know what? The NFL deserves that. The NFL absolutely deserves everything that it deserved on Sunday. From the bad halftime show to popular opinion bad game. I think the NFL had it coming, and I think that's fair. But I mean, we could try to get into the nitty gritty of it, but the game started out, and to me, it was your typical start to the Patriots Super Bowl. They got the ball first, which usually doesn't happen. They usually they try to defer to the second half, but this time they got the ball to start out because they lost the coin toss. Which, by the way, going into that, the whole coin toss thing, in all 5 of these Super Bowls that the Patriots had won before, they lost the coin toss, and apparently all the ones that they won, they lost. So when the coin toss went, when they called heads and the coin toss went tails, probably a lot of excited Patriots haters, probably a lot of upset Patriots fans, but it was like, well, wait a minute, maybe this was a sign to come in a different direction. And sure enough, the Patriots came out, had the typical drive up until an interception by the Rams. And then it was like, oh.
Something's happening here.
Yeah, something could happen.
And then 3 plays later, and the Rams are punting.
Right. Yeah, so it's like, that was pretty much the entire game. It was like, the Rams, they got the interception, they got the big old play. All right, here they come. And then, Todd Gurley could barely run the ball. And Jared Goff was just throwing into the dirt, and it was just like, all right, punt time. And then Patriots got the ball again, once again moving the ball down the field, and the Rams do enough to at least stop the Patriots for them to kick a field goal. And I think my favorite part of the broadcast overall was Jim Nantz comes on the screen and basically says that so far this season, there's not been a single missed kick at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And Tony Romo is like, did you just do that to him, just Jim? And then Jim is just like, don't blame the announcer. And sure enough, Steven Gostkowski kicks the ball and it goes wide left, and it's a missed field goal.
And Gostkowski is known for kicking field goals good.
Yes. And especially in an indoor stadium, and especially in a stadium that had not had a missed field goal all fucking year. And sure enough, missed field goal. So you knew it was going to be your weird day when that was the start. And so yet again, this was like, okay, here we go. The Rams have an opportunity here. And 5 plays later, bunt. And I feel like at the end of the first quarter, there's no score at the end of the first quarter, so all you 0-0 box people, you got yourself some money there. It felt like the Patriots overall were moving the offense better. Julian Edelman right out of the gate, the start of his great game was already a huge presence as to why they were moving the ball so well. But it felt like this game was just off to a slow start, that we would see anything pick up, even if it took another quarter, it felt like something was going to happen. It just needed time to get there. So second quarter comes around, and the Patriots had the ball for 7 plays, moved 39 yards, into a position for a 42-yard field goal, and Gostkowski comes back out, and redemption time just barely gets the ball between the uprights, and the field goal is good, and it's 3-0. And so the Rams, after all this, you have, this is a team that has built itself on how good the offense has been up until, like when they had the Juggernaut game. But we've known that this offense has been struggling in recent times. They seemed like they found themselves again in the playoffs, but it was not getting there for some reason. And a lot of this was thanks to a great defensive game plan by Brian Flores. And it just was not the type of game that Sean McVay wanted out of his team, and it just continued to show. All 3 drives in the second quarter were punts. And Patriots, they had an 8-play drive that went 36 yards, and they had a moment where they could have gotten it, and they could not get the ball move the ball on fourth down, and it was a turnover on downs, and again it seemed like the Rams had the opportunity to pick up where they left off, and especially they had the opportunity to go for it because I think the Patriots were trying to at least score a touchdown to really cement their lead, try to make sure that the Rams were in a deep hole and that they couldn't really trust Gostkowski based off of the 1-2 start, 1-for-2 start that he had. Could not do it, and so the Rams had a chance to capitalize. 3 plays, 8 yards, only 57 seconds, ticks of a clock, and they had to punt again, and then that was at the end of the half. So at this point, I'm just in my mind, I'm like, it's over. It's at this point that I knew. I was just like, there's the Patriots are built to be a second half team, and to be fair, the Patriots offense did not play well in this game outside of Edelman. It was a very much it was one guy that was really doing a lot of work. Offensive,
and he
go ahead.
And Edelman wasn't playing he was not an outstanding player by any means. He was just above average.
Oh, I feel like there was moments that he had that were pretty spectacular. Just the ability to keep on getting open and keep on the thing is he's always able to exploit the corners that he has, and I think that's what kind of makes him a great player, and that's what made him great in this game. But I mean, it definitely wasn't his best performance, but I wouldn't say it was like an above average performance. That's just my opinion. But I think the offensive line, they protected Brady well. Not really. Brady though was just not getting the right passes. It was not a good game for Brady at all. But there's just something about the way that this game was played that the way that the Patriots play any of these games, they always come out their greatest triumphs are in the second half. And the Rams, I just don't think were built to win this game after halftime. Speaking of halftime, we'll take a break for a second with the game. Go Cubs.
I would like to talk about this halftime.
Yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead, break it down.
Okay.
Halftime.
So, past few halftimes we've had. Super Bowl 49. Katy Perry rides a giant fucking lion, and we get the birth of Left Shark.
Yeah.
Who might be the greatest thing to come out, the greatest non-football related thing to ever come out of a Super Bowl. Super Bowl 50. Pretty nothing super standout, but a good mix of artists with Coldplay, Beyonce, and Bruno Mars all being involved in it. It was neat. Super Bowl 51, we get Lady Gaga. And Lady Gaga killed it. She was awesome.
Yeah.
Super Bowl 52, we get Justin Timberlake, and he was okay, but the size and spectacle of his show was good, and he seemed to interact well, at least with the people there.
Yeah, you got the meme of the kid taking a selfie or whatever it was.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you if you can get a meme out of the show, at least there's that.
Yes. Well, I mean, we did get memes out of this one, but
we did, but for the wrong reasons. Because everyone was hyping up, and maybe we expected too much that we were going to get the sweet victory, but then it just the fanfare happened, and then Travis Scott showed up, and they all the Maroon 5 and Travis Scott and Big Boy, they were just on the M the whole time. I had to go back, Chris. I went back to Super Bowl 48 halftime show with Bruno Mars.
Yes.
The dude started the halftime show with a drum solo on a moving platform. and then like went back in, started singing his music, and everyone on stage was dancing so in sync, and it was great. And Bruno Mars should do every halftime show. But Maroon 5 and like Adam Levine sounded like shit. Like, amazing what autotune can do, because that guy did not sing well live. I think there was like a section of Big Boy rapping that was like, oh, that's cool, but it lasted for like 6 seconds, and that was the only part of the halftime show that I was actually impressed with.
Yeah.
Pepsi halftime show. Is Pepsi okay? Halftime show is. Way to underwhelm everybody.
It felt very much like a regular concert at a stadium. Like, but even like not even meeting those standards. I remember I went to Citi Field, and we went to see. There's a bunch of bands that were performing, like Journey, Earth, Wind and Fire.
Oh shit!
Oh yeah, there's more. Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, not the Philadelphia Eagles, but you know, football joke. But there's a ton of bands there. It was some sort of part of like this world tour that they were doing. I'm not gonna remember the exact specifics of it. That to me was, I mean, maybe it was because I was there that made it different, but like I got more energy out of halftime shows in the past than I got at that concert. That concert, to me, as great as it was, it far exceeded the halftime show that I saw on television on Sunday. It was not. It just was. And I liked a lot of Maroon 5's early stuff. I'm glad that they did a lot of their early stuff in the start of the halftime show, but it really, a lot of it fell below expectation for a halftime show, I think. And what was the other thing too? Oh yeah, so and then the SpongeBob thing for me, I'm glad that they did it. I'm glad that they kind of like brought him up at least, and they kind of included him. Yeah. I get that there was probably like copyright issues where they didn't.
There's definitely huge copyright issues.
And that they probably didn't want to include him for too long, and like I feel bad because like Travis Scott apparently was one of the more vocal people that wanted SpongeBob included in the halftime show. So like so that's why I think that that SpongeBob did the intro to Sicko Mode or whatever it's called. But God, I mean they could have taken out one or two Maroon 5 songs. Like the She Will Be Loved. I love She Will Be Loved. That was one of my favorite Maroon 5 songs. But they could have taken that one out for Sweet Victory. Come on. Just get someone in there. You get a marching band. Any college marching band would love to be part of the Super Bowl halftime.
Oh, like, trust me, as a former college marching band member, like, even now, a year removed, they would lose their shit.
Yeah.
Like, lose their fucking minds. Like, Georgia Marching Band.
Yeah.
Pick them up, put them in, bada bing, bada boom. And they've done marching bands in the past. Minnesota was in last year's.
Yeah, I mean, think about the costume department. The NFL, I don't know who does the costumes usually for the halftime shows, but they always have something like insanely good at not only just the wardrobe, but the wardrobe changes and stuff.
And they got the money.
You know, they could have gotten those red and yellow band equipment stuff. They could have.
Yeah.
I'm sure the guy who sang Sweet Victory, I would be shocked if he turned down the opportunity to sing that song for the halftime show if you didn't want Maroon 5 singing it. Fucking.
Yeah.
All we got was Adam Levine in a couch cushion fucking design fucking t-shirt, or not t-shirt, whatever.
That he didn't even keep on the entire time.
Right, that he didn't even keep on, and then we just saw California across his fucking belly button. Like, it's, come on. Yeah. It was as unsatisfactory of a halftime show as I could remember.
Oh, yes.
Even though, like, it was redeemed a little bit by the SpongeBob appearance, but even that fell short of expectations. But they did it at least. They did something to it, and I would like to see maybe next year they'll do Sweet Victory. Maybe maybe they'll see the outpouring and they'll be like, let's just make SpongeBob the halftime show. I mean, come on. Anything like that. Anything else with halftime? I feel like there was something else and I'm just forgetting it.
No.
Any good memes that you saw that came out?
No. It was so boring.
Well, but despite the shirt and the SpongeBob, the disappointment in SpongeBob.
We've seen nipples before.
Oh, that's true.
Like,
there is a big debate about about like this between Janet Jackson and what happened with her and Adam
look,
Levine.
2 years in a row we had to revisit that because last year Justin Timberlake, who caused the wardrobe malfunction,
that's true,
was allowed back to be the headliner of the halftime show.
And not Janet Jackson, yeah.
And not Janet Jackson when it wasn't her fault.
Yeah.
I don't know if she would. If I were her, I wouldn't do it anyway. Like, even if they wanted me back,
right?
But and then Maroon 5, Adam Levine shows his nipples, and it's no big deal.
Yeah, I think there's one person. I mean, outside of SpongeBob, that would have saved the show, and I think that would have been Cardi B. But Cardi B was also protesting for the Colin Kaepernick stuff, so
yeah.
I think that she would have been amazing for it to just be included because she's such a big star now, and she probably would have come out in this epic outfit and epic rapping would ensue for that one song that they did together, Maroon 5 and Cardi B, but unfortunately could not happen. So there's that. So not just the game. The game wasn't the only thing that was disappointing. It was the Maroon 5's. And getting back to the game now, the Rams had the opportunity, now only down 3-0, to make a statement to start out. This in-game adjustment to really make a strong move to hopefully kick ass. And well, did not happen. 5 plays. Took 2 minutes, 2 seconds off the clock, only went 21 yards, and fell short of expectations yet again.
Surprise.
And this was kind of the theme for the start of the third quarter. Punt by the Patriots after going 41 yards. The punt by the Rams after only going fucking 4 yards. The Patriots, 10 yards. And then there is a play that I think will end up being the defining play of the Super Bowl. And it was on the Rams drive. They were marching down the field. And it seemed like finally that they were going to get a touchdown. They dropped back to pass. And I hope I'm correct when I say this. Hold on a second. Okay, here he goes. It was Josh Reynolds who Jared Goff was looking at. Yes. It looked like he was looking at him a little too late, though. And Jared Goff threw the pass, and Josh Reynolds blew the cut. I'm sorry. He was wide open. The Patriots blew the coverage, and it looked like he was easily going to get a touchdown, but then out of nowhere, Jason McCourty, who was on an 0-16 team last season, comes running out of nowhere and just shoves the guy out of bounds and prevents the score. It was a 7-yard pass that could have put the Rams back within 3 potentially, and did not happen. Or I'm sorry, it would put them within 6. I apologize. And instead, the Rams would go up. I'm sorry, I'm looking ahead at the score here. It's still 3-0 Patriots.
Yeah,
and it would have put the Rams up by 4, and instead the Rams had to just tie it up 3-3. And near the end of the fourth quarter, the Patriots had a 5-play, 26-yard drive that forced them to punt. So fourth quarter comes, and at this point, I'm like, okay, this might not be too bad of a Super Bowl after all. It's tied 3-3. Something exciting is bound to happen. Even if the Patriots come out on top at this point, maybe the Rams would make it interesting in some way, shape, or form that could get this game going in some way. Rams come out, 9 plays, 33 yards, and they punt. And it just was the story of the fucking game for the Rams. There was not a single, before the field goal, there was not a single Rams drive that ended in like an interception or a turnover on downs or a score. It was all punts until that field goal, and they're back to the punting in the fourth quarter. And that was pretty much what ended up breaking the Rams at that point, because the next drive, Patriots come in, only need 5 plays to move down the field, and this was the Rob Gronkowski legacy drive. It started out with an 18-yard pass to him, and all of a sudden it was after another 13-yard pass to Julian Edelman and a 7-yard pass to Rex Burkhead. It was a 29-yard pass to Rob Gronkowski, who easily hauls it in like he always has, and sets up a Sony Michel touchdown and an extra point, which makes it 10-3 at that point. And it was at that point that I'm like, all
right. How long was it into the game? 53 minutes?
Yeah, it was 53 minutes into the game until a touchdown.
For those of you who are unaware, there are 60 minutes in a regulation NFL game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good clarification. Also, by the way, I misread earlier. I should have studied this ahead of time. Brandon Cooks was the one that was trying to catch the pass from Jared Goff.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. I
thought we were like, I was like, are you right? But I wasn't, but like you had something in front of you, so I trusted your judgment.
Yeah, they have the play. I'm reading the plays on I haven't used NFL.com's play-by-play thing at all this season, so I did not know how to read it. I thought that the top play was the last play with the way that everything else was kind of working, but
gotcha.
I misinterpreted it. It was a deep pass to Brandon Cooks. I thought that was incorrect as well, because I didn't think Josh Reynolds was involved in the game, but I didn't think he was involved on that play. I apologize. So that was the touchdown, and then the next play. The next drive for the Rams, they have to now go back. They're now back down, and they have a chance to try tie the game, get their first touchdown of the game. 7 plays, 48 yards. It took 2 minutes and 43 seconds, and it seemed like things were doing good. You know, that things were starting to get going, and there's a bunch of long passes and all that, and it seemed like they were finally marching into a situation where they could actually get a touchdown. And then Jared Goff passes deep right, intended for Brandon Cooks, and it was intercepted by Stephen Gilmore, and it was a beautiful jump pass interception by Stephen Gilmore, and that pretty much sealed it. But the Patriots then marched down, had an opportunity to they basically killed the drive at that point, where when they got to the Rams side of the field, and they had an opportunity to either ice the game by doing a Brady sneak, or kick the field goal. They opted to kick the field goal, ended up being the game-winning score with Steven Gostkowski getting the 41-yard field goal. The Rams had one last shot to make something out of nothing, and went marched down the field. Brought Greg Zuerlein out, and his kick was wide to the left, and that pretty much sealed the Patriots' victory, as the Patriots now have 6 Super Bowl titles this decade and beyond. They have tied the Steelers for the most Super Bowl championships. Tom Brady now has the most Super Bowls of any player to ever play in the NFL. Bill Belichick extends his Super Bowl championship pedigree as well as a head coach, and he also now ties with George Halas and another coach that I can't think of at the moment of NFL championships overall over the course of the NFL's 100 years. And go Cubs, I'll toss it to you. How does this make you feel?
I mean, like, I felt apathetic just throughout the game. Because, like, at that point, like, the Rams, like, didn't deserve to win because of how shitty they were playing.
Yeah, that's how I felt.
I do not consider myself a Rams fan. I was wishing them success this season just because I liked the the talk and the shakeup of the NFL that they had caused. And obviously I wanted them to beat the Patriots, but they didn't play well. It wasn't fun to watch them. This was not the team that scored over 50 points against a team that also scored over 50 points. And maybe if I don't think Cooper Kupp's inclusion in this would have changed anything, but at this point I was just like, you know what, fine, whatever. It was bound to happen eventually. There's no chance that Belichick and Brady are calling it quits this season,
right?
Because of course they wouldn't. But now it's like I feel like now that they have that record, they will be sooner to calling it off.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was the most like not upset I have been in all the Super Bowl years that the Patriots have been involved in. You know, I remember the devastation of the Seahawks throwing the interception on the goal line and how bad I kind of felt for them, and the Falcons was even more devastating. I literally walked up the stairs and went to bed the minute the Patriots scored the last touchdown. I mean, there have been times where the Patriots have ripped victory from the jaws of defeat over and over again, and it was just devastating every single time they did it. But this game,
yet technically have had the most control that they've ever had in a Super Bowl. The only one where they've won by 10 points and the only one where they did not win on a game-winning drive.
Exactly. It was
is the one that we feel like just the okay, yeah, whatever.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think it made it better because I think that that in this sense, like, you kind of realized that the Patriots were going to win but when you saw the Seahawks at the 2-yard line and you saw the Falcons up 28-3, you're kind of like, oh my god, this might be it. The Patriots might lose this game. Yeah, and it just. Now, granted, when that Seahawks Patriots game happened, the Patriots were coming off a 2-game losing streak in the Super Bowl, so I mean that was a different time. But knowing the dominance that they were having when they entered the Falcons, when they came into the Falcons game, it kind of was like, all right, well, they got their 4th Super Bowl. I'm over it. And then when the Falcons went up 28-3, it's like, oh yes, and then it just fell the fuck apart. This game, I mean, I labeled it as Dynasty versus Destiny. I said that the Rams, with the way they built their team this offseason, they felt like they were destined to be in this position to win the Super Bowl, while the Patriots were the dynasty that kind of were they always have been here. This has been their the basically the invitational for them that they've always been a part of. And it's just it's always going to be a tough out to get them. And the Rams simply, Sean McVay, I love him to death, but he got outcoached in this game. Jared Goff, I wish him the best, but he did not look like a franchise quarterback in this game. Just a lot of big disappointment on the Rams side, but I gotta give the Patriots credit. The defense played outstanding, and Brian Flores.
Yeah.
Dolphins fans, man, you got a good guy in you, because
the Dolphins had a bigger victory than the Patriots in that Super Bowl.
Potentially. I mean, what was more at stake there? I think the Dolphins were one of your biggest victories, because there's so much talk about him as the coach too, but like you hear about his stories off the field, and him, how good of a leader he is, the problems that he's having with his mother, who's dealing with cancer right now. He just seems like a really good guy. You've learned so much about him. To see him have this success, it almost makes you feel happy that he won the Super Bowl on this big stage, because his team, because his defense was better than any of the Matt Patricia defenses that were out there that got him got him a Super Bowl. And that's and think about where we were earlier this year with the Patriots, where we were kind of like we didn't know if their defense was really going to be good enough to carry them, but his game plans down the stretch put Kyle Van Noy and Trey Flowers like really in the spotlight, and just every single member of that defense stepped up in such a big way in shutting down one of the best offenses that we could see. They couldn't do it against the Chiefs, and there were some really good plays by the Patriots defense in that game. But you kind of felt like if they couldn't do it against the Chiefs, they're not going to do it against the Rams. And sure enough, 3 fucking points by the Rams of all teams. That's insanity. So good for him, and good for Julian Edelman. I think that he deserved that. It was a great performance out of him. His number got called over and over again. It kept on building. Just a great game for him. I think for that, I'm very happy about. For MVP. Is there anything else regarding the game itself that you want to mention?
Not really.
What about the commercials?
The NFL had the best commercial.
Let's go ahead and describe it for us.
Yeah, so it was the NFL 100 to like kick off the 100-year celebration of the league, which is pretty neat.
Yes.
There was a party. Marshawn Lynch was trying to get some cake, and the football fell off the cake, and then everyone went crazy just passing the football around.
And it was all of the NFL's biggest stars, essentially. It also had a few guest appearances as well.
Yeah, so it was mostly like the current and former NFL stars. The coolest guest appearance was the I forgot her name. There's a 15-year-old football player from Utah who like went high school football player from Utah like kind of like viral because she
Sam Gordon.
Sam Gordon. I knew it was Gordon.
Yes.
Gordon is a good football last name. She was just like extremely talented. I think she like ran for like 2,000 yards in a season.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So like I didn't know who she was, but then I found out who she was. I was like, oh, that's fucking amazing. So good on the NFL for including doing that commercial and including that. Other than the NFL, like the only ones I remember is the Bud Knight stuff, but I always enjoy the Bud Knight commercials because they're so stupid.
This was one of those years where I actually did belly laugh at a few commercials. The Game of Thrones commercial was among like the most like whoa.
Oh yeah.
Where they all of a sudden they just killed the Bud Knight right there. It was just like, oh my god. But I think underrated, one of my favorite ones was there's an Audi commercial that a guy was like just found like his father in like in the field, and like he's showing him off a car, and all of a sudden like he starts he gets like in the driver's seat, and also he just starts like jerking his body, and like you don't realize, and then you look, and it cuts to the like office setting where someone's like giving him the high like maneuver almost, and then the nut just comes shooting out of his mouth, and that thing to me, I love just slapstick comedy like that. That
you know what
randomly comes in.
My least favorite commercial.
What was that?
Was the fucking Burger King Andy Warhol one.
That was weird. Why did they include that?
I don't know.
That was like really random. I was like, okay.
Yeah. It's like, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable. He I have a problem with this.
Okay.
For no reason.
Okay.
Other than he unwrapped the Whopper.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Put it on the table. Took the top bun off. And then poured the ketchup out onto the side. And then put the bun back on.
Did not even put anything on the burger.
He didn't even put it on the burger. He took the top bun off, put the ketchup on the side, put the bun back on, and then dipped it in the ketchup.
He just like I like he did. Maybe they were telling him like, "Can you put the ketchup on the burger?" And like maybe he was just like, "I don't really love ketchup," and he just put it on the side, but he still did the motion of as if he was putting it on the burger. That's weird. That is an interesting detail I didn't notice at the time.
Yeah.
Two more things. I think one of my favorite commercial series that they've been advertising for a while. One of the more heartfelt commercials, and I do enjoy the heartfelt ones. I know that people usually look for like the comedic ones. I felt like Doritos was very did not live up to expectations this year. That was just a weird.
Did Doritos have a commercial?
It did. It had fucking Chance the Rapper. I think it was.
Oh, it's Chance the Rapper and Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, all right. I mean, I think some people enjoyed it, but I was just like, I'm over Backstreet Boys a little bit. I think I'm pretty sure one of those guys on there was accused of like being sexual assaulting people, so I'm like a little over it. But there is another one. I think it was by Verizon. I'm not usually a fan of Verizon's commercials, but it was NFL stars who had been in like really scary accidents and didn't know they were gonna live, and it was Anthony Lynn of the Chargers talking to like a set of firefighters, talking about how like the firefighter saved his life one day, and then he found out that the firefighters he was talking to were some of the ones that saved him that night, and like you saw him get like emotional, and you're like, oh, Anthony Lynn. Like it was so that was really nice. And one last thing on the NFL 100 commercial, and I'm gonna preface this by saying I love when gamers and the gaming community gets a lot of attention. I think it's awesome. I think it's become a big part of it's a big part of society now, and I want it to become more mainstream. With that being said, I am so goddamn over Ninja. I have been for a while, but God, like he's everywhere, and you're like, go away. You know what I mean? I have personal vendettas with him, but like he's like I'm just so over his personality. There's just something about him that just exudes like arrogance, and I'm not for that. And I feel like there's other gamers out there that deserve some spotlights.
I unfortunately read something on Twitter that just like that made me like want to delete the app off my phone. It wasn't anything like extremely bad, but it just like I don't know. The someone was like commenting on the NFL Top 100 commercial. I think it was when I like found out who Sam Gordon was.
Yes.
Like I don't know why Ninja was in the commercial, and someone was like, "Dude, he's like one of the best gamers ever." It was like a 30-year-old dude saying that. It's like, no, most popular, sure, I can accept that, not moniker.
He's popular. He's very, very popular. One of the most famous of all time. You can't.
Popular, famous, sure. Best. He plays Fortnite a lot.
I would make the argument that they should have spotlighted. There's a huge Madden community and a lot of at least 2 or 3 on the top of my head that I could think of, at least by face. I can't remember their names, but that are huge Madden stars, Madden competitors. You would think that those are the guys that get spotlighted, but no, it's fucking Ninja, because you didn't have enough name recognition in that commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Like, give me a break. Anyways, but fun. It was, again, regardless, very good commercial, and I think the commercials ended up being the bright spots of the night, considering the game was not good.
But like not many of them were good.
No, I know. I'm talking about the 1 or 2 that were like, all right, that like made you laugh or made you emotional or whatever. Like the 1 or 2 that like made the night at least a little bit more bearable. I think that what made up for it a little bit. Before we move on to our off-season stuff and just talking about all that, any last words about this? Oh, you know what? Let me just squeeze in the NFL honor stuff real quick.
Yeah.
So the MVP did go to Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes,
as well as offensive player of the year.
Yes, as well as offensive player of the year. Defensive player of the year was Aaron Donald. Offensive rookie.
Although that one was not unanimous. Fun fact.
I would guess maybe Khalil Mack or.
Yeah, 5 votes to Khalil Mack.
I see. Okay.
Which is neat.
Offensive rookie was Giants running back Saquon Barkley. Defensive rookie was Colts linebacker Darius Leonard. Coach of the year, Bears head coach Matt Nagy. And the comeback player of the year was Colts quarterback Andrew Luck. They did not include this in the ceremony, but I think it's important to mention. Assistant coach of the year went to defensive coordinator Vic Fangio.
Hell yeah.
Hall of Fame class was Ravens free safety Ed Reed, Broncos cornerback Champ Bailey, the Cowboys vice president of player personnel Gil Brandt, Jets center Kevin Moai, Patriots cornerback Ty Law, Chiefs free safety Johnny Robinson, Broncos owner Pat Bowlen, and Chiefs tight end Tony Gonzalez, and one last thing, Walter Payton Man of the Year. Went to Eagles defensive end Chris Long. Very awesome honor for him.
Very well deserved.
Very well deserved for all the work that he
Jesus
does.
Christ.
That he does. But now go Cubs. Your closing words on the 2018 NFL season.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about that with some of the teams that we still have to talk about, like the future of the teams. But
that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. It was cool to see. All of the young stars start like getting their start, and really feeling like they are like hitting the ground running. Deshaun Watson proved that he wasn't a one hit wonder. Mitch Trubisky started coming into his own thanks to his new head coach. Jared Goff had his best season yet and will continue to get better. Baker Mayfield literally turned an organization around. I'm just talking about quarterbacks in this sense.
Yes.
And then Pat Mahomes had one of the best quarterback seasons ever, period. So that was I think a big thing for the season was the young stars getting their start.
Yeah.
Super Bowl did not end that way, obviously. But especially with all the head coaching hires that happened, this is going to be a young man's league going forward with the Patriots.
Yeah.
Young man's league plus the Patriots.
Young man's league plus the Patriots.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, and for me, I think about that, and I think about the first 12 weeks of the season. I think it was one of the most fun stretches that I ever had as a football fan, because every week seemed like there was gonna be something exciting happening, and it because of the guys that were playing every single weekend, and it all kind of culminated with that Week 11 Monday Night Football game between the Chiefs and the Rams, in this offensive juggernaut battle between two young quarterbacks that were deemed the future of the league, and everyone that night said that defense was dead. It felt like that the offenses were just going to take over from here on out. There was even a suggestion by Peter King the writer for Pro Football Talk, that maybe they should think about putting a 12th person on defense. That was how much the offense was seen as unbeatable. And then from that point on, this league changed, and it turned into a defensive showcase from basically the moment that game ended to the moment Super Bowl 53 ended. And it's a credit to the adjustments that all those teams made to become defensive heavy, and certainly it didn't help that some offenses that we thought were unstoppable kind of regressed around this point of the year as well. And as awesome as it was to see the defenses being revived, it did worry me a bit with how much the offenses regressed. And because it reminded me a lot of the season before. 2017 was very much a season where, outside of maybe the Eagles, the Rams, maybe like a few other teams, there really was not like, offense was far and few between, and all the games were kind of ugly. Where there was some like exciting, not really ugly, like the most beautiful games ever played this season, and that kind of stopped once the Monday Night Football game happened. And that to me, that was the turning point. That game was not only probably one of the most memorable games that we've seen for this year, the most memorable game, but also it's going to be remembered as the turning point of the 2018 season, where everything just kind of went to shit for offenses and defenses took over. And it's kind of crazy that even when it seems like offenses were coming back in the conference championship, I mean, the fucking Patriots-Chiefs game seemed like the offenses were coming back full throttle. And then the two teams that won those games came into the Super Bowl and put up a combined 16 points, and it was the lowest Super Bowl ever played.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is nothing makes sense, and
nothing makes sense, and we could have had Saints Chiefs.
And we could have had Saints Chiefs. And I in a way, you're not gonna believe me when I say this, but I'm glad that the Patriots won, so that we don't have to listen to an off season of fucking taint talk.
Yeah.
With the Rams. But I am disappointed though with the way that the season was, and then it kind of just died at the end, and that usually shouldn't happen. It should be that November, December, January, and February are the most exciting months of the year, and it turned out to being some of the more boring months of the season, and more of the fun games happened earlier on. So I'm hoping that we can have a complete season filled with fun games. We've been spoiled by some great Super Bowls, I get that, but hopefully we get,
especially the past 2 years.
Yes, especially the last 2 years. So I am hoping that things that especially with young stars playing full seasons, and more young stars entering the league, that these offensive juggernauts continue, but that I don't want defense to completely go away, but that we at least see some more fun things happening, more fun games happening for longer in the year, longer in the season. And I think that's basically my sum up of the 2018 season. But let's do some recaps for specific teams, and more so a look ahead for all the best 16 teams in the league this season. And believe it or not, the first one we'll talk about is the Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Browns are the top 50% of teams.
Yes.
You're doing AFC, I'm doing NFC, if I remember.
Yes. And so the Browns started the season with Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley leading the way as the offensive minds that were supposed to, that finally they'll get some wins. And they did in week 3 when Baker came out and took charge of the Browns teams in his grand debut of a potential future star in the NFL. And after a few months of some weird some weird games here and there, some games that did not go their way, but ultimately just a lot of incompetence at the coaching level. Hugh Jackson and Ty Haley were both fired, and they were replaced by Greg Williams and Freddie Kitchen, at least on the interim basis. And then proceeded to have a great run of games where they were just beating up on teams, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and Baker Mayfield showed why he was selected first overall. I really thought that he had a great chance of winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. I get why Saquon Barkley got it, but there is just something about this rejuvenation of the Browns offense that really felt like there is going to be a bright future there with Cleveland. And they decided to keep Freddie Kitchens, but he's now, instead of being the offensive coordinator, he's going to be the head coach. They brought in...
Keeping the Baker in the kitchen.
Okay, the Bakers in the kitchens. And could trade for Cooks as well. Get the Cooks.
No.
We made that joke last time. Shut it down now. But they brought in Steve Wilkes as the defensive coordinator, who did good stuff with Carolina till he took the head coaching job in Arizona. And they also got Todd Mankin from the Buccaneers, who turned around that offense after it seemed like that offense was slowing down a bit. And he had some great games with Ryan Fitzpatrick and James Winston leading the way. So he's also in Cleveland now. And this team just has such a great opportunity to just build around Baker, get the best player available, really at any position. They really could take anyone right now. Build a stronger foundation on offensive line. Get maybe a better in the secondary. Get Baker Mayfield some important weapons. They have a ton of cap space, so they can also build up on free agents as well. It's going to be a good offseason for the Browns, and I have total faith in John Dorsey, who rebuilt the Chiefs. I think John Dorsey is part of the reason why the Chiefs did it as well as they did this year, because a lot of the players that contributed were from his drafts class, were from his collection of players. And he was part of the reason why Andy Reid is there as well. So, I have faith that this Browns team is going to finally turn it around, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get to see a Browns playoff game for the first time since we were in fucking early elementary school.
Yeah, it's wild.
What's your feelings about the Browns going into 2019?
My feelings about the Browns going into 2019 is that they're going to be division contenders, and we'll have a better record than the Steelers by the end of the season.
Ooh.
That's not one of my bold predictions. But
might as well just put it in there, right? Yeah.
Might as well put that in there because look, they did so well when they got rid of Hugh Jackson, and Baker has more experience. Freddie Kitchens knows how to run an offense with Baker, and they're just gonna start gelling more and more. The Browns will have a winning season, and I think we'll be better than the Steelers this season.
Yeah, I loved Freddie Kitchens' press conference. He was like, we should not be happy with 7-8-1, and I agree, because I do wonder if Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley were not there, if the Browns would have been in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I mean, it's something to worth considering, but I mean, I don't know if Freddie Kitchens would have ever gotten his spotlight, though, and he deserves it after a great year, and we'll see if he could continue it in 2019. Go Cubs, the Minnesota Vikings.
Next up, before I get into the Minnesota Vikings, I just want to mention real fast that Illinois basketball just upset number 9 Michigan State.
Oh, well, yeah, Michigan State's falling apart.
Yeah, but that's still cool.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Minnesota finished 8-7-1. I do want to point out, I'm pretty sure I did last time, that there were no 8-8 teams this season.
Yes, indeed.
Thanks to our lovely ties.
Yes.
Minnesota started the year as Super Bowl hopefuls with a great foundation from last year, bringing over John DeFilippo and Kirk Cousins. Everyone thought that this was going to go great for everyone. And it did at first. And then they started running the ball. And then it stopped being good for Minnesota. So much so that they fired their offensive coordinator. partway through the season. Who replaced DiFilippo?
Kevin Stefanski.
Stefanski, yes. So Kevin Stefanski now the OC. Going into next year as well. They also hired Gary Kubiak, who is going to be like an assistant head coach. Another good offensive mind. It's going to be weird to see how Minnesota is going to turn it around from being like Super Bowl contenders at the start of the season to being middle of the pack throughout the rest of the season. Just barely missed the playoffs, and kind of just fell apart, especially midway through the season. So Kirk Cousins has to turn it around, I think, and they need to get their offense back in line.
I feel like Kirk Cousins had a good year, but again, there's something about him in big games that he just ends up falling apart for whatever reason. The running game needs to improve. Dalvin Cook is not the guy that they thought that he would be for them, and certainly the defense had such a good year. To have the offense be holding them back so much is just tough. They seriously needed improvement on the offensive line, and I do wonder if they're going to keep Anthony Barr, who's a free agent, who had another good year, but they might have to let him go considering how little cap space they have. So that will be interesting to see going forward. I still have faith in Mike Zimmer. I feel like the Vikings have been going in and out of the playoffs every single year, so I think maybe next year will be their opportunity to make the Super Bowl. I certainly think they'll be contenders next year. But we'll see.
Yeah.
The next up, the Tennessee Titans. This team just continues to be the most elusive for us as pickers because it was not just this season, it was last season as well that we just did not know what the fuck this Titans team is, and we still don't.
No.
All I know is that it seemed like down the stretch the Titans realized the bell cow that Derrick Henry is, and that he'll be used more down the stretch. But the biggest question is going to be with Marcus Mariota and his health. He missed quite a few games last season, including the finale against the Colts, and he has, even when he has been healthy or supposedly healthy, he hasn't performed to expectations. And the 1 year that Matt LaFleur had with the Titans, he didn't really get a lot of time to improve Mariota before now he's already the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. And so, what's the future for this Titans team? It's tough to say because there's a few defensive players that are going to be going on the market, and certainly there's going to be some consideration for if they're going to want to keep Mariota going forward. But from top to bottom, it feels like this is going to be a team that will compete again next year, but I just don't know. Even with, they have a lot of talent on the defensive side that played very well this season. The offense, there's Derrick Henry, and then there's everything else. So it's figuring out what the fuck they're going to do with that side of the ball. A lot of questions.
They feel like they're going to be a 9-7 team for the next 2 years.
Even though they've been the 9-7 team for the last 2 years as well.
No, that just feels like the direction that they're going in. Like they have flashes of good. They beat the Patriots this year
by a blowout.
And then Derrick Henry did what the fuck he did.
Yeah.
At one point this season, and like they don't seem to like learn from those and take those lessons and move on. And it's upsetting because they could be good, but they're not yet.
And the guy that they just promoted to offensive coordinator, and Arthur Smith, has been with the Titans since 2011. Has worked with the tight ends, is now going to be the coordinator. I mean, and he's going to be the one calling the offense. I mean, because Mike Vrabel is a defensive guy, so I do wonder. I don't know too much about Arthur Smith, and I don't think many people do, and so I really wonder how that connection is going to work with Mariota, especially a guy that needs to have a career year in order to keep his job. Um, so I'm just, I'm a little flabbergasted. They lost Brian Arakpo too to retirement for the defensive side. So it's gonna be this is just one team that's so hard to figure out, and I still don't know really what to say about them. All I know, like I said, defense was great last year. Derrick Henry will continue to thrive. Whatever happens on the other side of the ball for offense, we'll see how it plays out. But that's gonna be the biggest question in the offseason for them. Next up, the Steelers, the team that has been in the postseason so many years, and this year it just did not come to fruition. They started the year in kind of rough shape, and their defense was just being torn apart, and their offense was really struggling without Le'Veon Bell. But James Conner was a nice fill-in, and he's really done well. He was a Pro Bowler this year. And now the big questions of this offseason for them is, can they keep the success that they've had and try to fill the holes on defense, especially in the middle where Ryan Shazier once was, unless by some miracle he ends up playing, which would be just absolutely outstanding. But
yeah,
but we don't know for sure about that. Filling those holes on defense, but then what's going to happen on the? I mean, they have Le'Veon Bell. So this is the situation with Le'Veon Bell. But now they have the added situation of Antonio Brown, whom both of which may not even be on this team when the season kicks off in 2019. Luckily, the Steelers do have Juju Smith-Schuster, who I thought deserved to be a Pro Bowler over Antonio Brown this season. Not for any,
and I think ended up being.
He ended up doing so, but that was just because Antonio Brown was injured.
Yeah.
And I just felt like he should have just been selected right out of the gate. And by the way, my feelings about him not deserving to be in the Pro Bowl has nothing to do with the way he acted at the end of the year. It's just separate from. You look at the stats on paper. You look at how much Juju Smith-Schuster affected the game compared to Antonio Brown this year. And I felt like he was more of an impact player.
Brown had the touchdown upside. That's it.
Right, exactly, but the big thing with Brown is that he's still an amazing generational talent. Bell, an amazing and generational talent, and the Steelers are going to have to let them go because of whatever disputes they have, and that's going to be the story there. And will Pittsburgh will be able to sustain that success moving forward? I mean, fuck, they beat the Patriots finally in the regular season. It seemed like that was always their Achilles heel, and yet they did not make the playoffs, and they're entering. They have this offseason where just so much feels like it's going to be on the line next year, with Big Ben most likely, in his final years as the quarterback, and can this young team on all other facets of this team, can they do something, anything, to get the Steelers back into the playoffs and sustain success in any way? And that's the Steelers for you.
And that is all of the non-playoff teams.
Yeah. And so now we move on to the teams that got their wish, got to the playoffs at the very least. And we're going to start with the Seahawks. What do you?
The Seattle Seahawks. Not very high expectations going into this year, I don't think. Just because a lot of their defense players were gone. Early on, safety. I'm bad with names. Jesus.
Earl Thomas.
I need to start with an E. Earl Thomas got injured, which ended the Legion of Boom that the Seahawks recently became famous for.
Mm-hmm.
Side of the ball, pretty bad offensive or known bad offensive line, and they really only had Wilson and a couple injured receivers that really didn't know how to prove themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But then they started rushing the ball, and somehow It worked really well because they turned into the team with the overall rushing yards, like top rushing yards team wise, with 3 total rushers who contributed greatly, with Chris Carson mainly, plus Rashad Penny, their first round draft pick, as well as Mike. And that reliance on the rushing turned their season around.
Mm-hmm.
And they were able to like topple some big opponents, such as the Panthers when they were still good, and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Which led them into the playoffs, where unfortunately they met their demise against a good Cowboys. Yeah. But yeah, I think the fact that this was supposed to kind of be a rebuilding year for the Seahawks, and they made the playoffs, is a big deal.
Yeah.
Because if they get the talent, they need to fill in the holes that they have, they're going to be a really good team going forward.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy that the offensive line was not even a huge weakness for them. They played relatively well, although they do have a few of those guys going to free agency at this point. So that's worth noting. I mean, Russell Wilson needs more weapons, and he continues to deserve all the credit in the world to how well he has played. And he deserves a lot of the credit for how well the Seahawks team ended up playing as a leader and as well as a player on the field. Few big names on the free agent market outside of Earl Thomas, who is basically all and gone. But KJ Wright and Frank Clark, 2 of their most important defensive players this year, are both free agents. They should look to sign those guys to deals. I mean, Bobby Wagner is locked up for a while, and he was their best defensive player this year overall. So it will be interesting to see how that goes. Maybe some additions to the secondary. You lost your Legion Boom within 2 years. You kind of want to see if you can fill those holes as well. But overall, not too shabby of a season for the Seahawks.
Not at all.
Really good stuff. Next up is the Baltimore Ravens, and the season started out with Joe Flacco as the starter, and as some people pretty much expected, that it finished with Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson came in when Joe Flacco was injured and never gave up the ball at that point. And his run first style of a quarterback, very old school, but also very, very new and interesting. So new and interesting that it kind of set a lot of defense. It took a lot of defenses time to really adjust to what he was doing. It really took until the wild card round where he got completely shut down.
They faced a team that knew what they were doing.
Right. And this team overall, I mean, they're almost all the running backs that they had this season are on free agent market. Gus Edwards, Alex Collins, like all the guys that were among this rushing unit, or they're all Gus Edwards also is a restricted free agent, but still. And a lot of their defensive players like Terrell Suggs and C.J. Mosley, 2 of their biggest names in the last 4 or 5 years, that those 2 guys are also on the free agent market. So that's going to be interesting to keep in mind. But that, once again, the Ravens thrived on their defense, and it's what helped them win a lot of these games. They did a really good job of trying to hold back Patrick Mahomes in that game against the Chiefs, but Patrick Mahomes just was like, nah, you're not going to stop me, and he beat the Ravens with some ridiculous throws. But they could be a really good team moving forward. I would consider them among the favorites to win the AFC North, but
they need to add to their fucking receiving core, though.
Yeah, and it's surprising because it felt like this receiving core was their best that they've had in a while, but that ended up falling through halfway through the season, and they need more weapons for Lamar Jackson, and they need to add more to the offense that has been there, because it was completely exposed during the playoffs, and they can't let it fall apart. You know, last few years, when you've seen the Giants go from the playoffs to just utter trash bag, and the Jacksonville Jaguars go from AFC Championship to even more trash bag. The Ravens, I feel like could be one of those teams, especially if they don't make adjustments, that could go from playoffs, AFC North champions, to bottom of the league if they can't make adjustments and especially can't keep some of their most important stars on their defensive side. So that's all could be something to watch moving forward with the Ravens. Next up, the Texans. That's still me. I'm talking a lot right now. Houston.
My time will come.
Houston had its best season yet under Bill O'Brien, which is surprising to say considering how it started, 0-3. But just went on a spree of just amazing games where Deshaun Watson absolutely continues to grow as a franchise quarterback. And I feel like you had the game against the Colts was one of those anomalies, one of those big stage moments that you thought that Watson would be able to handle but just could not do it. And I hope that he'll continue to grow as a quarterback. But the defense really stepped up throughout the season. J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, Tyrann Mathieu, Kareem Jackson, all those guys just had an incredible season, and 3 of the 4 of those guys are currently free agents. So that's important for Clowney, Mathieu, and Jackson. You gotta sign those guys. Figure out a way to sign those guys. Maybe you could let go of Kareem Jackson, but they were huge parts of the why that Texans team turned things around. And another big thing is getting a wide receiver core, because Will Fuller went down, and that was a big loss. And you got this Demaryius Thomas in there, but I don't know if he's going to be able to stay there much longer. So
you have one of the best receivers in the game, if not the best.
Well, right.
But you need someone behind him, because one receiver ain't going to cut it.
Right, and because you're going to have the entire secondary covering DeAndre Hopkins, and then who else are you going to throw to? I mean, it's going to be really important. And Lamar Miller, despite having a nice year, it ended up going to the Pro Bowl as an alternate. But, I think there is some question about the reliability for the run game as well moving forward. And so we'll see about that. But Bill O'Brien should feel good about himself. I still think that he had a great year despite the tough playoff loss that they did. I just think they ran into a buzzsaw with the Colts. And the Texans are in good shape to be contenders next year for sure. And next up, of course, the Bears.
The Bears. I've talked enough about the Bears. On a kind of like a non-fan take on it, the Bears did really well this season. Clearly, worst to first, coach of the year, great foundation moving forward. I think is the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about. We lost Vic Fangio, but the defense that we have, especially built around Khalil Mack, is going to be great for a few years. As well as we finally have wide receivers who we haven't had since Alshon Jeffrey left. Trubisky did much better this year. Will continue to do well under Matt Nagy. Nagy. It's like Nagy. It rhymes with baggy or swaggy.
He actually did an interview one time when someone asked him how to pronounce his last name, and he was just like, either works. And it's like, but which one? And he's like, both. You're like, Matt!
Matt, please. So I'm really excited for the Bears moving forward, clearly.
Yes.
More experienced team next year. It's going to be great.
It's crazy because you look at the free agents that the Bears, and it's like one of the fewest free agent pools that they're going to have to let go of, or they could still resign some of the guys. But their best player, two of their best players that they have on the free agent market in 2019 are Adrian Amos, free safety, and cornerback Bryce Callahan, who is Bryce Callahan I think is important. Adrian Amos are pretty important, but not super. And then your third best free agent, wide receiver Kevin White. Like, I mean, come on, like this. Yeah. So they are set up to not really lose anyone. They may want to relieve some cap space for maybe some free agents, and hopefully they don't let go of the wrong guys.
And hopefully they don't sign Kareem Hunt. God damn it! If they do that, I will be so pissed.
There's really no reason for them to do so, but if they do that, I mean, shame on them. But the Bears, as it stands right now, they'll be able to hold on to this foundation. They're gonna need to make adjustments. They can't run the same shit from last year because the teams will read through it. They gotta go with something new, and they are gonna go with something new on defensive coordinator side because Chuck Pagano is now the defensive coordinator, which should be a great fit for the Bears. And
I'm very happy with that.
And I think Matt Nagy is right now with everything as it stands, it is really looking good for the team. So bright future ahead for the Chicago Bears. How about the Eagles, the team that beat the Bears?
The Philadelphia Eagles started the season again as I think Super Bowl hopefuls just because they won it last year, and not much had changed on them. But they were pretty injury plagued early in the season, especially on running back and on the defensive side of the ball. And they would not have made the playoffs had it not been for our Lord and Savior Nick Foles, who led them to a winning streak at the end of the season. After they figured out that, oh wait, Carson Wentz is sucking because his back is messed up.
Yes.
And he's been playing on an injured back most of the season, which is bad, and they should have caught that sooner. I think the Eagles are going to be okay next year. If Wentz is back to his 2017 form, they'll be a lot better. But I think there is some concern on the injury front for a good amount of their players. And if they have the depth, well, they have depth in certain positions like wide receiver now that they have both Alshon and Golden Tate. But running back, like, they have so many running backs on their roster, Chris. Some of them won't get injured and they'll be able to play, but
I mean, there's some big names on the free agent market. Ronald Darby, Jordan Hicks, Brandon Graham, Chris Long, Haludi Nada, Corey Graham, like all those on the defensive front. But then you just mentioned Golden Tate. He is a free agent. I don't know if he'll be signing back. We'll see. Jay Ajayi is also a free agent. Darren Sproles is potentially retired, but he's been saying he might be considering coming out of retirement. So then we'll see if he gets re-signed with the Eagles then. And so there's a lot of players there that are not like super crucial, but like guys like Brandon Graham, to me, like he was the Super Bowl hero in 52 with the sack strip, and Golden Tate revitalized the wide receiving core while everyone was injured on that front. And Jay Ajayi was your starting running back before he got injured. So like, those are guys that are going to be important moving forward. Haludi Nada had a great year despite his age. Up in the middle, really a guy that pressured a lot. I think the Eagles they have a lot of work to do in the offseason, despite being in such a good position that they have been. But knowing how Hero has been, the way that he's been handling off seasons, there should be a lot of faith from Eagles fans that they take care of business. And Carson Wentz hopefully will be injured. Hopefully we'll heal, not injured.
Oh God.
Hopefully we'll be healed. God damn it. I don't know why I said injured. I think that's why I was thinking about injury. No, hopefully he'll be healed and he will be ready to go. And then the story of Nick Foles. Where will Nick Foles play next year? That's going to be a big storyline for the season. Who will he be the starting quarterback for next year? Um, Next up, the Indianapolis Colts. I've been up this fucking team's butt all year, and I am totally proud of it still because I think the Colts they've been just such a strong team on all facets, and for some weird reason, I guess just because they faced the Chiefs, it just fell apart near the end. But they have the best offensive line in the league. I mean, this team started 1-5, injury riddled and all, and just turned things around like you rarely see in football. And the offensive line is one of the best in the league. Andrew Luck deserved the comeback player of the year. Has been absolutely outstanding at quarterback. Should have been a first ballot Pro Bowler, if that's what you want to call it, not an alternate. And they have Pierre Desser, Marcus Hunt. In terms of a few guys that were starters that will be free agents. But the defense overall really improved, and Mark Eberflus absolutely deserves credit for what he did in bringing a defense back to the Indianapolis who hadn't had one in quite some time, especially with Darius Leonard leading the way. Which, by the way, again, his nickname, the Maniac. So you stole my copyright. But it's gonna be, considering that those are only like a few players that could be free agents. It should be another strong offseason for the Colts. Chris Ballard has done an absolutely outstanding job. I don't know who won Executive of the Year. I'm actually curious. I might look that up. But I'll look that up while you talk about the Cowboys. You'll look it up.
Yeah, you're finishing up that.
But yeah, no. So, strong. It's going to be interesting to see what the Colts do. And I think that that they may need to explore running back maybe, but Marlon Mack did a good job. So he'll probably get another year to continue to improve. And we'll see what happens. I think they're the favorites to win the AFC South.
For sure.
So we'll see. Did you see anything pop up?
I could not find it. All it says is Chris Ballard was voted the PFWA's NFL Executive of the Year. Who was on the Colts.
Yes.
And then Ryan Pace was the other one that the articles were saying for the Bears.
Okay, yeah, because it's weird because usually that gets announced around NFL Honors time, but I have not seen anything on that front. But I mean, he definitely deserved, and him and Ryan Pace, both of them, I think definitely deserved a lot of credit for what they did. So good stuff. How about the Cowboys?
So the Cowboys started the season abysmally, and they were the Cowboys that I always knew that they were. Chris, guess what? I don't like the Cowboys,
yes.
But they did not play very well for a good part of the season. And then they traded for Amari Cooper, and suddenly Dak Prescott had a receiver who could make him look good. And Amari Cooper really turned the team around. A trade that everyone thought was not great at first turned out good in the end. Led them to the playoffs and winning the division. But for the future for the Cowboys, I don't see them, or I think that if they keep this what they have going forward, then they will find success. But Jason Garrett, dude, they need to stop having him be the coach. Because it's gonna be the same. It's gonna be they like maybe win one game in the playoffs if they make it at all. Never get past the divisional round. And just be a shadow of their 90s selves.
Yeah.
and make Michael Irvin look like the greatest Cowboys player of all time on NFL Network. With
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's for the fan base of the Cowboys needs to stop, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
They could be good going forward, or they could be sucky going forward. There's little middle ground for them.
Yeah. This is it just was one of those seasons where the defense was just came out swinging and down the stretch, and I think Amari Cooper open up the offense, just the same shit that we've been saying since he arrived, but
yeah,
he that I think changed a lot with the Cowboys, and it made them a little bit more interesting to watch moving forward. But I do agree, I would be hard pressed to see if this ends up being a down year, because again the Cowboys are kind of like back and forth. It seems like if this ends up being another down year for the Cowboys, I do wonder if they finally move forward without Jason Garrett and they find another head coach. And I think that would be worth exploring. They're looking at at Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator, who was their backup quarterback only like a few seasons ago. So I wonder how he'll do in his role of calling plays on that front. And certainly one of the biggest storylines will be getting DeMarcus Lawrence, their best defensive player, signed to a long-term deal. So we'll see how that goes. Next up, the Chargers. This team had its best season in a very long time. And a lot of that was just thanks to basically every facet of their team was really working well. And Phillip Rivers had a career season, and he's always had great seasons for the most part, but this one in particular just seems like it was working well because it seems like he constantly had someone to throw to, and Keenan Allen had just another outstanding season as the wideout there. Mike Williams seems like a budding star for them as well. And then the running game with Melvin Gordon and you have the Austin Eckler. The offensive line needs to improve big time. That was probably their biggest weakness down the stretch, and then what kind of limited them as an offense down the stretch. So that's gonna be important. Defensively, Joey Bosa was not as much of a wrecking ball as in past years, but he was certainly an impact player. Melvin Ingram had much more of an impact across the season, so it's gonna be interesting to see how he plays down the stretch. And the secondary, I think, is gonna be the biggest question. They lost Jason Verrett, like it feels like every single offseason before the season starts. He is now a free agent. I don't think that he resigns. So I think their biggest need outside of offensive line is going to be getting a real shutdown corner. And Derwin James had a great defensive rookie of the year campaign, even though he didn't end up winning. Good stuff moving forward for the LA team. Any thoughts on the Chargers, Go Clips?
You said it pretty well. The one thing that has plagued the Chargers in years past that I think that is hard to control and predict, but their injuries. Mm-hmm. They're a very injury-heavy team, and it feels like they have been consistently. Mm-hmm. So I hope that they can fix that and figure out a way to keep their team healthy, because that's, I think, the biggest thing holding them back from elite status.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good right now. The race for getting love from the LA fan base, the Chargers have been number 3, the Rams have been number 2, and the number 1 has been just no football. No one cares about football.
Yeah.
In LA. But if they win, and they win big, and they win all the time, then they'll certainly get some sort of fan base behind them, I'm sure, with the way the Rams have been building their offense, or their team, rather. over the course of their time in LA. Next up, we move to the championship teams. The Kansas City Chiefs. Just an unexpected, unbelievably fun season, and I think I can look back on this year and say that they were hands down my favorite team to watch, and it was mostly because of Patrick Mahomes. We had no idea that Patrick Mahomes would be as good as he was heading into the season as he was, and like from the moment he took the NFL stage, even in Week 17, 2017, he showed that he was going to be one of the main players to watch in the NFL, and he just constantly proved that he is among the best, if not the best, young quarterback in the league. Could be the best quarterback in the league for years to come, and it's going to be a hell of a ride seeing him continue to grow as a passer under Andy Reid, who hopefully at some point will get a championship. It was so disappointing seeing this team lose on AFC Championship weekend. I thought that I really thought that they had a foundation that could have overtaken the Patriots, but it just did not happen. And now they enter an off season where there's a lot of players that they're going to be saying goodbye to. Luckily, for the most part, it's on the defensive side, so they get a chance to retool that with Steve Spagnuolo, who is famous for his Giants defenses that took down the Patriots back in the day, in 2007, 2011. But saying goodbye to D Ford, and I'm also curious. They had Damian Williams fill in the role of Kareem Hunt, who Hunt left in about right before Week 13. And I'm curious what they do now at running back, if they decide to draft someone in the first round or not, or if they try to go for another weapon for Patrick Mahomes, because it seems like no matter who's been out there, that they've been a huge impact on this team. So it's going to be fun to see how they rebuild on the defensive side and what they add to make Patrick Mahomes continue to have the success that he's built already in the NFL. Fucking amazing season, and it was a lot of fun to watch overall. Any words on the Chiefs, Cocos?
They are going to be, I think, the team to beat in the NFL next year. Especially if they retool their defense, make it not the worst, one of the worst in the leagues.
Right.
They went 12-4 this season.
Yeah.
A lot of teams went 12-4 this season, but the fact that they were able to do that and win, and still win so many games and dominate so many games and be everyone's team to win this season, except maybe the Saints, is because their offense was so good. And their offense is going to continue to be that way. And now Mahomes is not going to have another 50 touchdown season, just because that isn't sustainable. But the fact that was his first season as a starter is incredible. Yeah. So Chiefs are the team to beat next year, I believe.
Yeah. And one last note, D Ford is a free agent. That he was their best defensive player, one of their best defensive players. Some Chiefs fans probably won't want him because he was offsides, and that kind of caused the Chiefs to lose the game. But he was a great defensive player. He should stick around, and the rest of the defense, we'll see how that gets retooled. Next up, the Saints.
The New Orleans Saints, they started the season victims to Fitzmagic. And then continued to win almost every other game they played that season.
Right.
They were really, really good throughout the entire season. Everyone was in on them. And then the NFC Championship happened, and we all know how that ended. Going forward, I think their biggest free agent is Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of any other major ones that they have, but like Mark Ingram is probably going to go somewhere else. They still have Alvin Kamara, who is an elite talent, and the rest of their team has the foundation. I'm just worried that, and Drew Brees has been fantastic still for the past few years. I'm worried that Drew Brees may like I don't know if he has a couple more years in him because he declined in ability as the season went on.
Mm.
And that's going to be a concern, I think, next year.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the only other free agent that is going to be interesting to watch is Teddy Bridgewater, because he was traded there to potentially be the quarterback of the future. Had one game that he played in and did not play well in it, and so I'm curious as to where he may go or if the Saints may re-sign him. But regardless, you hit it on the head. I think Drew Brees, he needs to play better down the stretch if they want to really consider, going towards the Super Bowl again. I really hope he does, and I think that the team overall is built to continue doing well. I mean, there's not a lot of free agents that they have to worry about, and I think they can sustain their success moving forward, because I don't necessarily see the NFC South outside of maybe the Falcons, maybe the Panthers if Cam Newton's healthy. But I really think that they could get that division again, with just how things have worked out for them in terms of being able to sustain the roster that they have moving forward. Next up, the Rams, the runner-ups.
The Rams. Other than the fact that they were one of the most, like, the highest scoring teams in the league, that continue to be that way unless they were up against a good defense. Bears, Patriots. They have started this craze of young offensive mind. I'm phoning this in. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
This craze of like young offensive mind is what our football team needs in order to be successful.
Right.
And they're right in a way, because it's worked. It worked for the Rams. It's worked for the Bears. Working for the Eagles. This idea of RPO and all that jazz.
Yes.
is the hot topic of today.
Yeah.
We'll see if that's ends up just being a fad, but I think the Rams are still going to be, they're going to make the playoffs next year.
Yeah.
And no matter what, like, even though they sucked in the Super Bowl, they're going to be fine going forward.
Yeah, I think so too. And they have a few key players that are going to be interesting to see if they re-sign. LaMarcus Joyner, DeMarcus Sue, Roger Salford on the offensive line, C.J. Anderson. I mean, Dante Fowler. Like so they have a few guys, but there's a great team here, and I think Les Snead has really redeemed himself as general manager since Sean McVay's arrival. I think that this team is going to be good for years to come, and I think this is just going to be just a hiccup in the road for them. Hopefully they don't have too much of a Super Bowl hangover. That seems to be a common trend. So I don't know if they'll make a Super Bowl run this next year. I think they'll be very, very good, and hopefully they could buck the trend and make it to the Super Bowl, and this time win it. They're in good shape.
Maybe.
And last but not least, the New England Patriots. I mean, what else could be said about this team? It seemed like every aspect of their team kind of came together at the end and won it. But it people don't really want to criticize the Patriots anymore. But it was not a very strong roster. But the good news for them, maybe bad news for everyone else, is that they have 6 draft picks in the first 3 rounds of the draft. So will be interesting to see if they will retool and be able to build with a lot of young talent. Isaiah Wynn was one of their first round picks, and he was injured in the preseason, so he's coming back as well to help the offensive line out. And so this team really just add depth. on the defensive line. I mean, that was one of their biggest weaknesses overall. Offensive line, I think will improve with Wynn and maybe a few other guys in the draft. And I don't think there could ever be an endless amount of threats and offensive tools that Brady could use. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. But and I think the only big storyline is going to be who will be out in New England. And I think
I say Brady and Belichick are back. Gronk is not. Gronk will retire.
Yeah. And there's also guys like Chris Hogan and Trent Brown and Trey Flowers, I think the biggest name, and then as well as Steven Gostkowski, Jason McCourty. Those are all our guys who are free agents. Will they be re-signed or not? That's going to be a big question as well. Cordell Patterson included in that group as well, so will be interesting. So now, last but not least, it's been a long podcast, but we want to get few last bold predictions in before we close up shop. And I will start with you, Go Cubs, if you have your first bold prediction.
All right, my first bold prediction revolves around the departing Steeler players, both of which I believe will be departing.
Yes.
I decided to choose one kind of obvious one. Antonio Brown will be a 49er next year.
Okay.
Le'Veon Bell is going to end up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot.
Which I think him with Bruce Arians' offense replacing Peyton Barber will be a large improvement in that regard and could jumpstart this offense.
Along the similar lines here, one of my bold predictions, I did that I said that Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell will end up on the same team, but not the Steelers.
Okay.
So, because I don't know if both of these guys are going to get traded. I think that, but even if so, you could have a team with a lot of cap space, like let's say the Browns, who may, if both of these guys end up being free agents somehow, could end up landing these guys, or you could have. Listen, I'm just saying, anything can happen. I think that those two guys, I think they liked each other a lot when they were together, and that who knows if they could both end up being on the same team, and especially a team that needs a lot of offensive weapons. Watch them be the Patriots. What's your next bold prediction?
My next bold prediction, I originally said one quarterback, but I'm going to lump both of them in here because I think they're equally likely. One of the old free agent quarterbacks, either Joe Flacco or Nick Foles, will be the starting quarterback for the Jaguars this next year. Nice. But the Jaguars will also draft a QB with their first-round pick.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's interesting. We had bold predictions that kind of lined up in interesting ways. I had 4 quarterback names, 4 significant quarterback names that we talked about in free agency of some kind. Ryan Tannehill, Blake Bortles, Joe Flacco, and Nick Foles. One of them, at least one of them, will start a playoff game in the 2019 playoffs.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's so much more bold than what I've been doing.
Yeah. Bold predictions. I just it was one of those things where I was like, one of these, like, I feel like you have like Nick Foles who has somehow brought the Eagles to the playoffs 2 times and won the Super Bowl once with them. I feel like you'll have another random one like that, and it would be stunning if Blake Bortles with another team as a starter went to the playoffs again.
Oh, that would be pretty stunning, I think, Chris.
What's your final bold prediction?
Did you see Blake Bortles play this season? I'm just saying.
I know, but who knows? Go ahead.
I don't actually know if this is like bold or common or not. I'm going to say that I originally said 8, but I think I'm just going to change it to the absurd amount. Insert an absurd amount here. Teams will change kickers this offseason.
It's not. It's common, but not incredibly. How many teams do you think?
I said 8. which still seems like a lot.
Yeah, you want to go see one up and go to half the league?
Uh, half seems too much.
It's bold
12.
predictions. All right,
12.
12. All right, fair enough.
12 teams have different kickers next year.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. And my last bold prediction, I say that after a year where 4 quarterbacks were taken in the top 10 in 27 in the 2018 NFL draft, the 2019 NFL draft will have 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 10 as well. So it will be the second year in a row where 4 quarterbacks are taken in the top 10.
I don't like that one as much. I know which 4 you're talking about that could go.
You never know. If people are desperate, or teams are desperate for quarterbacks, and it's not looking as strong as a quarterback year this year, but you never know.
Because you're thinking Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock, Kyler Murray, and the Duke. Yeah.
Yeah, you never know. It could happen. I mean, a lot of those guys. If Kyler Murray, I mean, because we don't know, and he may has an announcement any day. If he says he's full committing to football, I think he's a first-round pick. Dwayne Haskins and Drew Lock are seen as first-round picks, and I think Daniel Jones has been seen as a top 10 quarterback, potentially drafted early. So you never know. You never know.
Cool.
And finally, your Super Bowl prediction, Super Bowl 54 prediction.
Super Bowl 54 is going to be against the best team in the league, and the best team in the league. I couldn't best team in the league, actually, and then best team in the league in my heart. Bears versus Chiefs.
Bears versus Chiefs. And the runner-ups?
The runner-ups in the on the AFC side, I decided Indianapolis.
Okay.
And then because the NFC is ever changing, and nothing ever stays the same. Carolina's going to get their shit together and be the runner-ups on the NFC side.
Of course. The Bears.
That's a long shot, but it's I don't know. It can happen. Cam Newton's shoulder surgery went fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was thinking about it for a while, and I was thinking about the Super Bowl is in Miami, and the last Super Bowl that was in Miami was about 10 years ago, when the Saints beat Peyton Manning and the Colts. And I say that Drew Brees gets back there and beats Andrew Luck and the Colts in Super Bowl 54. Right. The runner-ups, I said the Bears would make it to the NFC Championship game against the Saints, and fall just short. And because I think the AFC will hopefully be more exciting at some point. Cleveland Browns as the runner-ups to the Indianapolis Colts. I almost just went all in. Almost went Browns AFC Championship.
Browns with it all. Yeah.
You should be glad that I stepped off a little bit. A little bit.
You know what has to happen now though, Chris?
Yes.
What actually is going to happen?
What's that?
Okay, so last season, Saints had a big time deal thing that ended their playoff run in the divisional round. Last season, or this season, yes. They had a big time thing that happened to them in the championship round.
Yeah.
So they're going to make it to the Super Bowl next year, and then there's going to be some either miracle play or bullshit call that is going to cost them the Super Bowl win.
Right. Which means we'll have either an off-season of loving a miracle play or an off-season of absolute just bitching and moaning for months and months and months, which will be absolutely painstakingly annoying or amazing, depending on which side you're on that front.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I'm just
one final thought on my part. I'm going to skip the kick. Or one final thought on my part. I started keeping track just based on draft order to see which team was the better conference this season. Yeah. So I whatever draft position they were, I gave them that many points per conference.
Yeah.
The NFC clocks in at 255 total points. The AFC at 273. So the AFC was the better conference this year overall.
It was. And it was more exciting overall, even though it ended up having the most predictable,
Yeah.
most predictable team in it. So I mean, it representing them in the Super Bowl. So I wish that it wasn't the case. I wish that we got to see one of these great AFC teams, finally overtake the Patriots. But I think this conference is getting better, and hopefully, finally, something finally comes together, and for the first time since 2015, we get to see someone other than the Patriots in the Super Bowl for once. That would be a dream. Hopefully. So, with all that being said, and with just another amazing, fun, crazy season that it has been, as disappointing as it has been in terms of the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and as hard as the stretch as it was still as fun as it ever can be of a sport. And we're gonna be diving right into the off season, which is also among the best part of the NFL. So 3 months of craziness, and I'm sure you'll hear from me and Go Cubs at some point over the course of the next 3 months, talking about everything. But until then, thank you to anyone who followed us this off season. I know we don't really have an audience, but if anyone is watching, even silently, we appreciate it, and it's a lot of fun doing this. And Go Cubs yet again, thank you so much for being part of this season.
Thank you for having me. It's fun to just talk for a long time.
This is, I believe, we'll clock in as our longest podcast to date.
Oh, really?
I think so, or at least this season.
This season, I can believe.
This season,
we've definitely gone longer than 2 hours before.
I'm not too sure, but this will definitely be among our longer podcast episodes, and definitely the longest of the season. But again, if you listen the whole way, what's the word of the hour, Go Cubs?
Is it anything other than pooter?
We could do pooter penetration. There you go. I wanted to put football. It's a football word. Penetration. Come on.
Penetration. Yeah.
So pooter penetration. Put it in the comments down below if you watched to this point.
I guess.
Just I want to see the comment section filled with pooter penetration.
When you said that on that one My Sims video that we did together, I think it took about a year before I stopped getting those comments.
That's among my crowning achievements. That will go on my resume one day. just to make sure that my legacy is really solidified, like Tom Brady right there.
Yeah.
Congrats to the Patriots, and I fucking hate you, but congrats to the Patriots and win another championship. And to the Rams, Chiefs, Saints, and a lot of the great teams that played this year. Fuck you, Raiders, but everyone else.
Fuck the Raiders.
Another great season for.
We're gonna shit on the Raiders a lot this offseason. I will, at least.
Well, yeah. I mean, you never know. Maybe something will happen where my opinion changes about them. But right now, to me right now, in terms of the 4 teams I hate, it's Patriots that are the least hateful to me, and then the Raiders, and then the Cowboys, and then the Redskins. Like those are the teams that I'm the most over at this point.
Yeah.
But Cowboys, Redskins for separate reasons. Raiders solely because I have no idea what they're doing, and
I think they're officially not playing in San Francisco. They're no, we don't. You.
Yeah, they didn't make an announcement on Super Bowl Sunday that they could be playing in Oracle Park or whatever, but that seems to or have changed, or AT&T Park or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That changed because San Francisco doesn't want them. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think San Antonio may be back on the table. I mean, unless Oakland wants to just be like, fuck, you might as well just host them one more time.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. That's another off-season storyline that we'll follow at one point or another.
Fuck. The Raiders are just incompetent.
Yeah. But
the Raiders. Okay, Chris,
yes.
I solved it.
Yes.
I solved it.
What?
What are the Browns' uniform colors?
Orange, white, brown.
What are the Raiders' uniform colors?
Black and silver.
Black is the new orange.
Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you all enjoy. We're moving on. Thanks for that joke. We pushed it over 2 hours. I hope you are proud.
Yes.
I hope you are proud.
I'm very proud, Chris.
Guys, thank you all for a very fun season. I hope you all enjoyed. Be good to one another, be kind to one another, and we'll see you guys for the next season. Bye-bye.
Or the draft.
Whatever.
Whatever we're feeling.
Bye.
Bye.